Congratulations if you made it to the next round of your fantasy playoffs. My condolences if you did not. And I mean, I'm not going to do it today because we have so many things to go over on today's show. We got a 30-team weekend recap. We got to do our reverse chronological lightning round Monday. We also have a brand new reset on our long streaming discussion. And I think all told, that'll take at least 45 minutes, maybe longer. But I got to say, I remain extraordinarily irritated with head-to-head playoffs. There's nothing more that I can say that you guys haven't heard me say already on this front. I tweeted out a picture of what my lineup looked like yesterday. I lost 6 players during last week in one of my head-to-head matchups. So what the hell are you supposed to do with that? I got so annoyed. I know it's the same tweet I talked about on Friday's show. I got so annoyed with the tweet that I was like, well, if you have depth, you should be fine. No. Because during this part of the season, more than one guy typically goes down. Somehow I played a team that lost 1 game to injury the entire week, but that's not the norm. That's not the norm. I lost Jordan Clarkson for the bulk of the week. Bojan Bogdanovic went down for the week. Mark Williams went down for most of the week. Darius Garland missed a game in the middle of the week. Brandon Ingram missed most of his week. And on and on and on and on. Try Roto with me next year is what I would say. I know you guys are all going to end up back in your head-to-head leagues because that's just the nature of the beast. But try Roto with me. I really think you'll enjoy it. It's a different kind of strategy. A lot of people try Roto for a first time and go, oh my God, oh no. It's different. I don't like it. It's different. But it's good different. Once you start to figure it out, you'll realize it really does crown the team that had the best draft and picked up the best players during the season and didn't rely on one very lucky week in March. That doesn't sound so bad to me. I know for many of you, you've got whatever it is, $25 on your league or something like that, and you're in it for the excitement factor. And there is more of that in head-to-head this time of year, where you're watching the games on Sunday and you're going, come on, get a rebound, you idiot. You don't have that so much in Roto. You'll have a little bit of that as the season winds down, but you've been working all year long. Every day along the way has been critical in building up whatever it is that you built on your Roto side. Whatever. Let's talk fantasy basketball. You guys don't care about that. Anyway, congrats again to anybody that moved on. We'll talk playoff streaming towards the end of the show. We need to get into the weekend stuff. This is Fantasy NBA Today, by the way. Simulcast, as always, on YouTube and on all recorded podcast channels. I am your host, Dan Besbris, DanBesbris, on the Twitters. I hope to see you over there as well. Sports Ethos is sportsethos.com and at Ethos Fantasy. BK for basketball, BB for baseball, FB for football. I hope you guys will join us at least one, hopefully all, HK, by the way, for hockey, of our fantasy news feeds. Jumping in quickly here, I got to get through the weekend. We don't have all day, people. Brooklyn beat Denver 122-120. Nuggets have not so quietly fallen into a weird little funk of late. It felt like maybe they built too much of a lead in the Western Conference and then just kind of took their foot off the gas. They still have a 5-game edge on the Kings and the Grizzlies, but this is inarguably the worst stretch the Nuggets have played all season long. I'm sure they'll snap out of the funk anytime soon, but in the meantime, not a whole lot to worry about on the fantasy side. Jamal Murray, the question of whether or not he will play every ball game the rest of the way remains kind of up in the air when they have this giant lead. Will Jokic get some days off? Nuggets do have a back-to-back towards the tail end of this week. Then they roll into a 2-gamer, so things lighten up quite a bit. But that's just something to keep an eye on. And, you've got Bruce Brown waiting in the wings, as he has all season long. Over on the Brooklyn side, I'm not going to outright say you need to go grab like a Dorian Finney-Smith or a Royce O'Neal or anything like that. I still think it's the main 4 guys of Dinwiddie, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Claxton. But at least some of these other dudes on Brooklyn have slid into a schedule stream posture, and a pretty safe one at that for Finney-Smith, for Royce O'Neal in particular. Cleveland took care of Charlotte 114-108. game that was probably closer than it needed to be. Nick Richards is the hot pickup of the, well, du jour, I guess. Charlotte has a terrible schedule this week, but he's playing his tail off right now. Dennis Smith Jr. got to start with Kelly Oubre getting a day off. I don't know. I mean, in a 2-game week, I'd be a little surprised if the regulars got rest days, but I guess you never know. And if they do, and you're looking for kind of that quick explosion, Dennis Smith Jr. is one guard away, as we can see from very large fantasy games. Something to keep in the back of your mind if we get any kind of word on. And this is more for the Roto Games Cap side, because you're not picking up, you're definitely not using a roster move to add a Hornet this week. You're just kind of deciding, how long do I hold the ones that I already have? And I think the answer is probably through tomorrow. But again, we'll talk more about that during the schedule part of the proceedings. No other real news on the Charlotte side. As long as Mark Williams is out, Nick Richards is a very easy play. And he was excellent in this ball game again, with nobody at all challenging him for playing time right now. DeAnthony Melton, only 21 minutes, but he was extremely useful in them. 3 threes, 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks, blowout win. He continues to do just enough to hold his roster spot. Every time I think that Melton's run out of gas, puts like a half a gallon back in the tank. He doesn't fill up the whole tank at the gas station. DeAnthony is just a little squirt. That's a gross way to think about putting gas in your car. Washington, you can kind of throw this one out. They got clobbered, but we were trying to get some more data on Daniel Gafford and DeLon Wright. DeLon, he's not going to have the top 50 run he had when Monte Morris was out, but he was a top 100 guy, or a little bit better than that even, when Morris was playing. So for most formats, I think you're holding on to DeLon. I know that the Wizards don't have a good schedule to start this week. Gafford, to me, is more of a schedule play. I think that's what we were talking about towards the end of last week. Same story for Corey Kispert. And then you've kind of got your main dudes out there. But again, they just got clubbed in this one, so don't read too much into it. Portland was without Damian Lillard, and they got destroyed, as you'd expect. I'm a little bit worried that the Blazers have sort of seen they're walking towards the light right now. Portland's 6 games under 500. They're 2 back of the 10 seed, but they're also 2 back of 4 teams all tied for the 9-10 spots right now. So not only did they have to play better, but they need a couple of teams to lose, not just one, a bunch. As far as schedule goes, I think theirs is actually not particularly difficult, but if this Dame thing turns out to be anything more than a little small deal, that's trouble. But I wouldn't worry yet. We're not quite close enough to the end of the year to say, oh, well, this is, the beginning of the end for the Blazers. They still are close enough where they're going to fight a little bit longer. But they got to find a way to win some ball games. And this would have been a good one to try to start with. But, I mean, it's just not going to happen without Dame. If Lillard misses any additional time, we all know that Anthony Simons is going to take every shot on the planet. Cam Reddish slides back into the starting lineup in this spot, and then he becomes useful again. But again, it just feels like Dame is going to be back, and maybe I misread that, but I don't think I did. Meantime, on the New Orleans side, Brandon Ingram missed both halves of the Pelicans back-to-back, which, I mean, I told myself at the beginning of the year I wasn't going to touch Brandon Ingram, and I drafted him in one head-to-head league, and he pretty much ruined that season for my team by missing 2 months and occupying the only IL slot we have in that league, and then now missed 2 critical games while I was trying to fight my way into the last playoff spot. So screw you, Brandon Ingram. You are probably, you're probably the most annoying player to have in fantasy this year. I thought it was going to be Chris Middleton, but Middleton at least has been playing lately, missing back-to-backs, but at least he played. Ingram, you turd. Pelicans have 1 game the first 4 days this week, so I don't know what we're going to get out of Ingram. They host the Lakers. He's going to want to be in for that ball game tomorrow on Tuesday. If he comes back, my assumption is that he takes the starting spot of Trey Murphy, but then Najee Marshall was also in the starting lineup for this ball game. So they're mixing and matching a little bit right now. Pelicans are hard to read Josh Richardson had a big ball game. Herb Jones is a hold, so at least that's an easy call. CJ McCollum, his percentage has been all over the map this year, but at least that's a relatively easy call. You're pretty much making your decisions based on whether or not Brandon Ingram is playing. And the Pels are frankly not a great scheduled team right now, so this is a hard one to read at the moment. Oklahoma City rested a couple of their guys, took care of a tanking Spurs team anyway. I would expect Shea back for the Thunder's next ball game. They play Brooklyn tomorrow. Jalen Williams probably back in for that game as well, so don't read too much into this particular box score. Although I will say the safety of an Isaiah Joe stream with Shea out appears to no longer be very highly marked. He's just wrapped up in the carousel with everybody else. As far as the Spurs go, they rested a couple of folks on Sunday, which, I mean, kind of silly given that they only played 2 damn games last week. But this is what you do when you want to make sure you're losing ball games. If the team you're playing is resting a bunch of guys, you have to rest a few extra. So no Keldon Johnson, no Trey Jones. Malachi Branham left this game very early. Not that that one was a big deal anyway. Devin Vassell is cold. He's still kind of working the rust off after his very long absence. It pushed Devontae Graham back into a big job. We saw him get a healthy DNP Friday, I think it was. I mean, it's all... They have a back-to-back. Spurs have a back-to-back coming up. I would assume that basically every single fantasy-relevant player on San Antonio sits at least one of those 2 games, and it's possible that they sit 2 of the 4 games on this club right now. Charles Bassey is actually relatively safe. He played 15 minutes here, but if Collins sits, he'll play more like mid-20s, and he can rack up fantasy stats in a hurry. Keita Bates-Diop is playing every game at the very least, so it makes him an interesting schedule play later this week. Vassell, I'm holding. I think even in a 3-game week, he's probably good enough. Collins, same story. In a 3-game week, he's good enough to start. Trey Jones, does he even see 3 games this week? He's close. I don't think that I would risk it. Feels like it's probably not going to be enough on the Trey Jones front. Jeremy Sohan is not a great 9-cap player anyway, but does he even get to 3 games? Probably not. All of these guys are folks you're going to be considering starting tomorrow, but as, Roto Games Cap goes, and if you don't want to, if you're okay with a dude playing every other day, Vassell, Collins, Trey Jones are useful. If a couple guys sit, you could go Devontae Graham. So there's just a lot rotating in San Antonio right now, and it makes it hard to just make an outright call on anyone for the Spurs because it changes hour to hour right now. Screw that. Knicks beat the Lakers. Knicks continue to be one of the better road teams in the NBA. They're 21-14 on the road. Is that the best road record in the NBA? Celtics are 21-12. Bucks are 20-13, which is basically a statistical tie there, ever so slightly ahead. But that's Knicks have the 3rd best road record in the league. 2nd and a half, if you want to call it that. I feel like the Lakers may have taken them a bit lightly without Jalen Brunson. And although at the same time, it was just one of those games where Anthony Davis wasn't very good. And the Knicks beat the Lakers up on the glass. And that was the difference in the ball game. Knicks out-rebounded the Lakers 46-37. If that is an even number, Lakers either win it or this game goes to overtime because it was tight pretty much throughout. Isaiah Hartenstein had a really nice ball game in his 24 bench minutes. Just outplayed Mitchell Robinson, but I don't expect that'll happen again. Emmanuel Quickley's a start while Jalen Brunson's out. Josh Hart still generally startable. They're just a lot better when he plays, and you can see his minutes continue to trend up. As the Lakers go, we now have a couple of games of D'Angelo Russell back to try to size up the everyone else part of this extravaganza. And as expected, Dennis Schroeder, not that great with D'Lo back. He had a pretty good ball game against Toronto. Raptors played a unique type of defense that tried to force Anthony Davis to just get rid of the basketball every single time he touched it. And so D'Lo and Schroeder and Reeves and the guards had the ball and were driving constantly. So they had bigger ball games in that one. And this is, I think, maybe more what you can expect most days, which is a lot of D'Lo, a lot of AD. and then everybody else gets what's left. The Rui Hachimura actually played a pretty good ball game yesterday for LA. But in terms of fantasy assets, Vanderbilt got pushed around by Julius Randle. That's a bad matchup for him. He's just too strong. Vanderbilt probably should have been on RJ Barrett. I think the Lakers stuck Malik Beasley or Troy Brown on him for a little bit, and those guys were getting roasted. They needed a little bit more length there. But then who the hell would have been dealing with Randle? If Robinson is around, Lakers really needed LeBron for this one. They needed a super strong power forward, and that's the thing they don't have while he's out. They have energy, they have length, they have AD at center, but they don't have the strong guy left on the team anymore. Made this game tougher, no question. But fantasy-wise, it's kind of what we expected. A lot of Lakers that had value when D'Lo was out don't now. Let's turn the clock back to Saturday. We'll wipe out most of the other teams in the NBA. I'm trying to remember. Did anybody not go over the weekend? There were like one or two teams, I think, right? Minnesota didn't go over the weekend. Toronto, those are the only two. See, I'm ready for the Friday part of this show this time. I'm never ready for the Friday part of the show, but I am this time. All right. We talked about the Knicks, the Clippers. They're turning back into a three-horse team again. Kawhi, PG, and Zubats, who's still holding off Mason Plumlee somehow. As expected, the Clippers figured out, it only took them like 3 or 4 games, that Russell Westbrook should not be playing in the fourth quarter. And he's not anymore. I think you might see him get into a fourth quarter if the Clippers are trying to sort of catch that energy lightning. But Terrence Mann, typically a better fit. Nick Batum, a better fit. You saw more Eric Gordon in this ball game. None of those guys is going to have fantasy value, but the end result is that Russ, who never should have been playing 30-some-odd minutes for this team, was for a week and now wasn't. Anywho, we talked Charlotte already. This is what they looked like when Kelly Oubre was playing, which is a lot of Kelly Oubre. But what about the Utah side? Still no Colin Sexton, no Jordan Clarkson. Do either of those guys resurface here during a 2-game week? I don't know. We'll have more information by later on today. But THT has a whole crap ton of usage. Chris Dunn is, he got shoved out in this one because Taylor Horton-Tucker was playing so much better. But I still like Chris Dunn. I actually like both of them while Clarkson and Sexton are out. When one of those two comes back, I probably favor Dunn. This is the huge game from THT. This is the as good as it gets moment for him. And for Utah, they're sort of like they're semi-trying still. This was one of those kind of throwaway games where you get the free win. And for the Jazz, frankly, they've kind of had a couple of those. Not that the Magic are tanking or anything, but Utah had this little mini stretch over the weekend where they got to play super easy teams. And life gets tougher now for the Jazz. Their schedule gets crazy complicated over the next week and a half to 2 weeks. They have the Heat, the Celtics, the Kings, the Blazers, who are stinking it up right now, but they're also fighting, the Bucks and the Kings again, and then the Suns before they finally have the Spurs, which is a gimme. That's March 29th. The Jazz are in real jeopardy right now of going, 0-7? But if they beat the Blazers in there, maybe could they go 1-6? They could very easily go 1-6, and that would pretty much end things for Utah. And then March 29th, is that what I said that was? That's when you really start to worry about, does Olynyk play anymore? Do they start to go easy on Kessler? They're sort of prized youngsters. Does Lauri Markkanen play anymore after that date? He was awful in this ballgame, but they won anyway. Something to keep in mind for Utah. But I think we've got another, maybe even before the end of that, but a little bit longer here. They're going to hang in there because they're still tied for that 10 seed, thanks to the kind of the 2 gimmies over the last 4 days or whatever it was. Indy beat Detroit, but again, we talk about throwaway games. Tyrese Halliburton sat this one out. Miles Turner sat this one out. The answer to your question is yes. It's kind of the beginning of that stuff for Indiana. They're still close. They're still only a half game back of the Bulls. So they haven't given up yet, but they're not going to push their guys at this point because it's not a championship level team. There's sort of no reason to go crazy. I do still think they want to make the playoffs. So when Halliburton is ready to go, he'll play. When Miles is ready to go, he'll play. Buddy Hield, by the way, is questionable for their next ball game. It just feels like the Pacers are kind of taking it easy because they've got Detroit again. This is the game where if you wanted to give a couple dudes a day off, you can do it, and the team you're playing against is going to basically make sure that you beat them. So don't worry too much yet, but it does turn a lot of Pacers into a 2-game week. So on the head-to-head side, that's going to be a real pain in the neck. And then as far as do you want to go short-term injury replacement, which is, again, more of a roto games cap type of move because the Pacers schedule is not particularly good this week. Isaiah Jackson is a shoo-in if he's starting, which he did the last one. If Halliburton sits, you look at TJ McConnell, but he also sat. And if he's out too, you go Andrew Nembhard. That one's a priority totem pole. You just kind of work your way down the board. And then if Buddy Hield sits, I don't think that I would start Chris Duarte in Roto, but if you had a Pacer, he would be the one that would hang in there a little bit longer. And then Detroit, they've got stuff shifting again. Marvin Bagley is hurt again, turned an ankle. Or is he just a sore? It doesn't matter. His ankle hurts. They don't have Isaiah Stewart for the season, so they really don't have any power forwards left, which means Isaiah Livers probably slides up and plays some power forward. They might be forced to go Duren and Wiseman at the same time, which means zero floor spacing of any kind. But the good news is, because so many guys are out for Detroit, Burks is out, in addition to Bagley. They're almost forced to play the other guys because they were down to 9 men in the rotation. You really can't lose many other players, or you're going to risk hurting the guys that you're actually still rolling out there. So for Detroit, they've got this back-to-back. They've got 3 and 4 to start the week. Isaiah Livers is probably going to have to play about 40 minutes in these games. Killian Hayes is going to have to play 30-some-odd minutes. Duren's going to be back in the mid-20s. Corey Joseph is probably going to be at 25 or higher. There's a lot of streaming options. On the Roto side, I don't know that I'm playing any of them. I haven't been a huge fan of Livers' fantasy game, but if he's really going to go out there and take 20 shots, I think you almost have no choice but to fire him up. The Wiseman-Duren thing, to me, probably requires a little more sizing up because, again, not every game is going to be against the ultra-high-paced Pacers, even though today's happens to be. Would I start these guys in Roto is the question, because I would definitely start these guys in head-to-head with the back-to-back and the 3 and 4. But in Roto, I mean, Duren's the guy that I would probably look at first, and then Killian Hayes is the guy I would probably look at second, or if you want to put him in there with Livers as kind of a tie, that's where I'm sitting on that one. Miami, they're a broken team, man. Say what you want about the Heat. They're the 7 seed. They're not getting out of the play-in. They're just trying to hold on to the 2-1 side of the play-in tournament, and it looks like they probably will do that. So, good for the Heat. Jimmy Butler's trying to carry them, and it's not working. Bam Adebayo has good games most of the time, but Tyler Hero playing through, I think they said he had diarrhea, which super fun. I've been wanting to say that on a podcast for a long time. He tried to play. It didn't go that great. Victor Oladipo saw his minutes come back down even because he wasn't really making his shots, but he's actually been kind of roto startable lately. Kyle Lowry played, but now he's listed as questionable because we just don't know if his knee's going to hold up. But frankly, they kind of need him to get back to normal speed. I mean, to dump him back into a game and play him 36 minutes in overtime is not a good idea. Anyway, with Lowry back around, probably, not that you hadn't already dropped Gabe Vincent, but that becomes a pretty straightforward call. Butler, Bam, Oladipo, well, I should say Hero first. Oladipo is the one that's kind of on the cusp for me for Miami, but those are the ones you're looking at. On the Orlando side, Franz Wagner turned an ankle here, and this might finally be the thing that allows Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs to coexist, which was someone playing close to 30 minutes needs to get out of the way because there just sort of weren't enough minutes available for both Anthony and Suggs to play unless they were both having fantastic ball games. That was the only time we saw it happen, and that meant that, Gary Harris who rested a couple in there, he got sort of aced out of some minutes in that ball game, or maybe they went small for a stretch, but they had too many guys in Orlando that they need to force into the lineup that it just wasn't working. But now Orlando, who actually has a good schedule this week starting tomorrow, you might see Harris rest a game or two this week. Franz is likely to miss a ball game. I think he's questionable, but if he misses a game, then you could probably go both Anthony and Suggs on the head-to-head side at the very least, and maybe even on the roto side. Mo Wagner, by the way, a very obvious drop now that Wendell Carter Jr. is back. Boston, no big news there. We're just sort of waiting on a Time Lord update. He's likely to join them at some point during this 6-game road trip, but it's about a week and a half, 2-week-long roadie, so it doesn't give us much of a window. And in the meantime, just enjoy the boost to Al Horford. Timeshare City continues. That is Atlanta by now. Atlanta is Timeshare City. Sadiq Bey, Anyika Okongwu, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, who played 39 minutes here. So a little bit less Hunter, but certainly John Collins. These guys are all rotating who gets to do stuff on a game-to-game basis. It has made all of them extremely annoying to try to roster in fantasy. They are, in my estimation, schedule streams. And for Atlanta, not a good time to do it. They had their really good schedule that rolled through this last Saturday, but now they lightened up. And they have one game over 5 days starting yesterday. That game happens to be today, by the way. So if you have a Hawk, play him today, but then get the hell out of the way because they got 3 days off after this one. Chicago's had a terrible schedule. It gets a little bit better starting on Wednesday. So if you were looking ahead, that would be a team you could kind of eyeball a few of their Carusos or Pat Wills or Pat Bevs or whatever. But for now, no changes there. Houston, Jabari Smith Jr. really seems like it's finally started to click. Rockets have 4 games this week and next week. I expect him to play in all 8 of those with the game finally starting to come around for him. Wow. I mean, you only had to wait 5 months. Don't draft rookies, ladies and gentlemen, because typically you're not going to make it this far with a guy rolling top 200 on your team the entire season. Tari Eason slowed down a little bit in this ballgame. He still had 4 threes, but he had 5 fouls in 21 minutes. Don't worry too much about that. Otherwise, for the Rockets, everything kind of remaining the same. Jalen Green is back in there. He's had to sort of give way a tiny bit on the field goal volume part of the ledger now that Jabari Smith Jr. is playing a little better. And look, I'll be honest, the Rockets are a less disturbing team to watch when it's not just Green and Kevin Porter taking 20 shots each and getting their butts kicked. Grizzlies beat the Mavs. Mavericks were down both superstars in this ballgame. I thought Christian Wood would get more playing time with no Luka and no Kyrie, but apparently not. Tim Hardaway's still on his heater right now. We're waiting on status reports for the various Mavericks at the moment. Dallas does go tonight. They've got Memphis at home, so this is a home-and-home situation. Kyrie's questionable. I think Luka's already been ruled out. I still think Christian Wood is a safe play with at least one of the Mavs superstars on the shelf. But, this ball game showed me that maybe that's not necessarily the case. I would still likely stick with it. And then you can roll Tim Hardaway as long as he's still hot, lava hot these days, which he has been. I can't believe that dude got 2 blocks. That may have actually ended one of my fantasy seasons. Tim Hardaway Jr. blocking 2 shots. Unbelievable. Josh Green probably a start if both stars are out. Not one or the other, but both. For Memphis, David Roddy had a big ball game, but you can generally ignore that. Tyus Jones, Xavier Tillman, those are the replacement guys that you're rolling with on the Memphis side. Warriors beat the Bucks in overtime. No Giannis for Milwaukee in that one, but he is questionable for the Bucks game tonight. Milwaukee's on a back-to-back in Sacramento and in Phoenix. I would be surprised to see Giannis play in both halves of that back-to-back. So my guess is that he'll just pick one or the other. This is kind of a difficult, very fast West Coast swing for the Buckaroos. We know Bobby Portis goes big when Giannis sits. Middleton finally up to starters minutes. Thank the good Lord, but he'll sit one half of the back-to-back. Also, Joe Ingles will be very good in the whatever half of the back-to-back that the Stars sit out for Milwaukee. And now that Drew Holiday's rolling, that probably puts Javon Carter on ice. Grayson Allen also has a shot to be kind of an interesting streamer here at the beginning of the week. For the Warriors, we got a report over the weekend that they're hoping to have Andrew Wiggins back at some point this year. What a crazy report to get when he's out on a personal absence. They said whatever's going on in his personal life is way more important than whatever's going on in the NBA. So to that end, all we can say is hopefully Wiggins is all right. I mean, that's a pretty unpleasant report. But in the meantime, Dante DiVincenzo, keep it going, baby. Just do your thing. This is what Oklahoma City looked like when they had their players in. So a lot of Shea, a lot of Jalen Williams, and then a decent amount of Josh Giddey, and then everybody else is whatever. Sacramento, this was the Malik Monk game. He does this every once in a while, and it renders Kevin Huerter fairly useless. Sometimes you get a bigger game from someone like a Trey Lyles, or in this case, it was a bigger game from Kessler Edwards, and that rendered Keegan Murray fairly useless. No valuation changes for me on Sacramento. Plus, they're moving into a really good scheduling run where the Kings have a 5-7 starting on Wednesday. Look ahead. Suns just trying to weave their way through this thing without Kevin Durant. They'll be fine. Suns are good enough with all the rest of their guys, but I mean, this does cut them down a bit, you know? They had Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges there, and those guys are now just gone, but the replacement dude isn't. I do like that the Suns have been putting up some gigantic fantasy lines lately, so I'll take that. Josh Okogie is the safer play over Terrence Ross. I know Ross is on one of his little, flamethrower type things, but we know how those go. All of a sudden, it's just going to end, and it's going to be a blaze of glory when it does. Okogie is your stream while Kevin Durant remains out. Flipping very quickly over to Friday for a Minnesota and Toronto quick check. There isn't a whole lot to look at with the Wolves. Rudy Gobert is questionable with a left ankle situation. If he's out, Naz Reid would obviously be a really intriguing play. But the Wolves' schedule it's good this week, but it's a little bit more backloaded. And I would assume that Gobert is back at least at some point by the middle of the week. Still, if you're just looking for the 4 games, Reed is something. If we find out Gobert's out, you could potentially make that move to Reed today and then just hope that you can get half usable lines the rest of the week with one big one. I don't know. I mean, you guys know how much I hate using roster moves on Monday. And then for Toronto, Gary Trent has been downright horrible lately. Horrible. He's completely lost his mojo since moving out of the starting 5 this time around. The previous time they moved him out of the starting 5, it was to insert whatever it was. I think like Precious was playing a little bit at that point. So Trent could very easily carve out his role. Right now, if he's not good, he doesn't play. Roto, I'm benching Gary Trent Jr. Head-to-head, I'm holding because they have a 4-game week. But Roto, he doesn't need to be in your lineup right now. All right, that's your 30-team review. We need to pivot very quickly now to your upcoming schedule because it's playoff week, baby. You can't be screwing around at this point. You got to be getting your maximum weeks. So let's look at a streaming schedule. First of all, the bad schedules this week. Let's do that one quickly. The Knicks have 2 games. The Jazz have 2 games. I don't know why I'm doing it sort of out of alphabetical order. And games, which is something that we've been talking about for a little while because the Hornets and the Knicks in particular had good schedules at the tail end of last week. I think you guys probably expect me to come on here, and I'm guessing most analysts are telling you just abandon ship on all of them immediately. I actually disagree, because if your fantasy season continues beyond this week, anyone that's inside the top 50 or 60, you should be holding even through a 2-game week. Also, for Utah, they play tonight in a 2-game week, and then they're off for 4 days. So for Jazz, honestly, I don't know that there's anybody on the Jazz besides Lauri Markkanen that I would hold through a 2-game week in general. But you can hold all of them through their game this evening. There's no reason to move on from a player that you've liked to this point because their schedule gets bad. Get the game out of them, and then move on tomorrow. Again, the only Jazz I believe you need to hold is Lauri Markkanen after they play today. The Knicks, if you like the Knicks players that you have on your team. And, in their defense, the Knicks that have been rostered most of the year have generally been pretty highly ranked fantasy players, like Julius Randle, like Jalen Brunson. Even Mitchell Robinson has been ranked pretty high for most of the year. I know he's bounced around a tiny bit since coming back from injury, but the Knicks do have a handful of dudes that have been pretty highly ranked. I believe that because roster moves are so precious right now, especially after watching one of my teams lose 6 players in a week to different injuries, I really would have liked to have had all 4 of my moves to just unload guys that were going to get a 0. But I had actually moved off of players last week that had 2-game weeks. Like I dropped a couple of San Antonio Spurs last week, so I had to use a couple moves there. And then I only had 2 or 3 moves left when 6 of my damn players went down. I mean, I was pretty much cooked at that point, obviously. But that's why I don't want to use moves super early in the week. I get it. If you have an injured player, that's the time to use a move early in the week. But even then, if it's a good injured player, as much as it hurts to take a 0 on a Monday, it's probably a better idea to just take that 0 and hope that they're back for their next one. I'm trying to think of a good example of this, of someone who's not like an obvious hold. Because, Dallas, Luka, Kyrie, if they miss their ball game today, you're probably not dropping those guys. And frankly, they're likely on can't cut lists in most fantasy leagues anyway. But there are more fringy guys that are likely game time calls that are going to get ruled out at some point today, where I would still say probably hang on to those dudes. Now, if it's someone who's very fringy and they get ruled out today, fine, move on, because super fringy guy, cut down to a 3-game week that if they miss another game, it gets cut down to 2. That's not something you need to hold on to. But in general, you are not making a move today. In general, you are not making a move today. It has to be, in my estimation, kind of extenuating circumstances to require it. The Knicks play tomorrow, much like the Hornets, and then have 3 days off. So again, I know a lot of folks are going to say, get the hell off of the Knicks as fast as you can. But I think if you have these kind of fringy New York players, and right now Josh Hart is actually a pretty good example of that, because he's been hovering more around the 100 range, a little bit behind that lately. You can hold on to Hart and get his ball game tomorrow in Portland, which will probably be a pretty high-scoring game. It's not call it a revenge game or anything, but it is against a team that he played with previously and had nothing but nice things to say about. So, there's not going to be like, the chip on the shoulder kind of game. But sometimes these guys like to beat up on former teammates and things of that nature. And then they slide into 1 game over 5 days. So it's still very easy. And like you're making the calculation at this point. The guy you have on the Knicks, I'm going to continue to use them as the example. You can get 1 game out of a Knick, and then 3 games out of any number of teams in the NBA that go Wednesday through Sunday 3 times. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What am I looking at? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams that go 3 times between Wednesday and Sunday. So you've got half the damn NBA of streaming level players to pick from. Would you rather have 1 game from, say, Josh Hart, and then 3 from whatever streamer you pick up for the rest of the week? Or would you rather have 4 games from some guy that you pick up? I think I'd rather have 1 of Josh Hart and 3 from someone I probably want less. And in addition to getting likely the better first game from Josh Hart versus a streamer level guy, you also preserve your roster moves until, in that instance, Wednesday. Sorry, YouTubers, text message that I got to check into. Nope, all's well. Okay, Back we go. And I feel somewhat similarly on the Charlotte side, where, you preserve those moves until Wednesday, and then you probably have to move on, because if you wait past that, yes, there are a couple of teams that go 3 times Thursday through Sunday. But either way, if you wait beyond that, you lose the ability to get 2 extra moves in your roster shift. That's the thing I always preach. You guys know I preach that at this long streaming time. If you're making a move, make sure you're getting a 2-game bump. But also think about when you're getting the 2-game bump. And in this case, for New York, for Charlotte, 2-game bump comes before or after they play their first game. Utah's a different story. Utah, they play their game today. Then you can actually get a 3-game bump. Woohoo! Because they go 1 time over the final 6 days this week. God-awful stretch of schedule for the Jazz. Then their schedule gets a little better starting next week. But 4 days off in there for Utah. 1 game against the Celtics on Saturday of all clubs. So you can pick up someone on Tuesday, tomorrow, drop your Jazz, and get a 3-game bounce. Pretty darn sweet. Pretty darn sweet. So again, think about when you're using these roster moves to get off of the bad schedules. And I would continue to say, best time is not today. Hopefully you guys were long streaming with us last week. That should have pulled you into at least a not completely disastrous schedule at the beginning of this week. And then you can hold on to your moves until maybe use 1 tomorrow if you have a Utah player you need to get off of. You could use 1 on Wednesday. But once you're down to 2 moves, then you probably don't want to do anything until at least the following day. You could use 1 on Thursday. You could use 1 on Friday or Saturday. Then you're done. Or if you use 2 early in the week, 1 on Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday, something like that, probably hold on to your other ones until Friday, I would hope, in case somebody on your team gets hurt. That's my playoff streaming grid. That actually will wrap up the recorded side of the podcast. Thank you, all of you guys, as always, for hanging out with us. Oh, you know what? I actually forgot one thing. I didn't do any promo, but it is actually very important that I sneak in a promo here that I think I was supposed to do last week, and I screwed it up. And you know what? For YouTube, you're going to get it now. For the recorded side, you're probably going to get it edited into the middle of the show. But that's because I got to tell you guys about our buddies at ExpressVPN.com. Guys, going online without ExpressVPN is like using your smartphone without a case. Some of you might actually do this, you heathens. And most of the time, maybe you'll be fine. But all it takes is 1 drop. And then you would wish you had protected yourself. Same thing with VPN. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, cafeterias, hotels, airports, whatever, your online data is not secured. Any hacker on the same network can get access and steal your personal information, your passwords, your financial data, whatever. And it doesn't take like a super techie to do it. Some cheap hardware can make it happen. If you're sitting in a Starbucks and you see a 12-year-old in the corner with sunglasses on, look out. Hackers can make up to $1,000 selling your info on the dark web. Don't let them do it. Okay? Don't let them do it. Use ExpressVPN because it's secure, because it's super simple. That's probably the easiest reason of all. All you got to do is turn on the app, click 1 button, and bingo. You're secure in an encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Hackers can't steal your data. Works on phones, laptops, tablets, more. You can stay secure on the go. I mean, it's so easy. I like ExpressVPN personally because it is so simple and I feel safe. So secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/hoopball. Yeah, our old name. That's expressvpn.com/hoopball. expressvpn.com/hoopball. And you can get an extra 3 months free with your 1-year subscription. expressvpn.com/hoopball. Check them out right now. All right, folks, thanks as always for tuning in. To my recorded listeners, we'll see you on Tuesday. To my live viewers, hang out with us. And I hope to my recorded folks, you'll come hang with us live on YouTube for the next one. So long for now, everybody. All right, YouTubers, let's see how fast we can go through some of these questions today, because a lot to do. This is where we left off. You know what? I should let everybody know on the interwebs that we're doing the Q&A session now. 10 minutes of Q&A starts. Whoopsies, caps lock. Starts now. Come ask your question or miss out. There we go. You guys get to watch me tweet because Dan still needs a producer. Suggs or Cole in a points league? I like them both right now. I like them both with the Franz Wagner injury. Go Suggs. Those steals and blocks, you could go crazy in a points league if those rack up points fast. Would you rather 2 games of Trey Murphy or 3 games of Xavier Tillman? I'll go 3 of Tillman. Do you think Jalen Duren plays the back-to-back or stream another player like Terrence Ross for the 3 and 4 days? I don't think Duren plays the back-to-back, but I could be surprised. And I'm not a big fan of Terrence Ross, so if you can find someone a little more trustworthy, that's the direction I would go. Would you start Gary Trent Jr. or Terry Rozier in weekly lineups? Man, Trent's been so bad. 4 games of Trent versus 2 games of Rozier. Lately, it's actually 2 of Terry, believe it or not. But I think I would have to hope that Trent has 1 good game in there, and then 3 bad ones should be better than Rozier in 2. I'll go Gary Trent because 4 is just so many more than 2. Yeah, that was when the internet was glitching out. That should have solved itself. Internet's weird today. I don't know why. I reset everything before I started the show, and maybe I need to reboot the computer. Maybe it's hardware. Sorry about that, everybody. I think the internet should have fixed itself, though. If you have 7 weekly ads, my God, man, is it better to target players with a 3 and 4 schedule? Finals week, how should I use my ads? Yeah, 3 and 4 is good. You have 2 choices. If you have 7 weekly ads, you could stream 4 roster slots pretty successfully in a long streaming fashion, or you could stream 2 and just make sure they play every single day. I'm okay either way. I would probably stream more slots because that gives you the opportunity to use moves on possible injuries. Like you'll probably need 2 or 3 of those moves when guys just go down. But that's the direction I would lean there. Is Trey Jones playing this week? He wasn't hurt, just an illness. I mean, it's tank. It's a tank. I think he plays between 2 and 3 of their 4 games this week. How many in there? I don't know. So you can just grade it out as like a 2.5, which to me has not been enough for Trey Jones. Do you think Joe Ingles plays in the back-to-back? Yes, I do. He played in their last one. I just have a Linux as a drop after today. Assists and threes will get me the win this week as my opponent's weaker in that area with Randall and Markkanen. Yes, I think Ingles does play in the back-to-back, although I would rather have a Linux today, especially if Giannis comes back. Are there any Spurs you can trust to play all their games, though? Is it Bassey? Yeah, it's Charles Bassey. And Keita Bates-Diop are the guys that have been playing in all of their games right now. This was back from earlier. This is a question from the beginning of the show. Flatulente was asking who the best streamers are for this week without schedule involved. Derek White, Isaiah Jackson, Andrew Nembhard, Nick Richards, Isaiah Livers, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Huerter, Alex Caruso. If you're going for the 1-game home run, you're probably going Isaiah Jackson with no Miles Turner or Nick Richards with no Mark Williams. Those are the directions I would lean in that one. So pick a big. If Miles is playing, don't go Jackson. If Mark Williams is playing, don't go Richards. But I got to think you could use at least one of those 2 guys this week. What up, Dan? Hope you had a good weekend. Thanks, Richard. Did have a good weekend. I called 3 USC baseball games this weekend. It was a doubleheader on Saturday and then a game yesterday afternoon that got tweeted out by the NCAA account. That was pretty cool, actually. I'm in 2 leagues. Both are head-to-head. I wouldn't mind trying Roto League, but unfortunately, I can't find one. Richard, we have free Roto Leagues through Sports Ethos. I don't know if Andre is watching today's show, but Andre Lemos is our director of many things. He's our Renaissance man here, and he runs the leagues, and we have some free Roto Leagues. If you want to try one out, just kind of see how it goes. That's a great way to do it. Just make sure to hit us, me, or Andre up before next season starts, and we'll get you plopped into that. Same goes for anybody else who's sick of head-to-head leagues ending because 6 of their guys are game-time calls and none of them play. Any insight on if Kyrie plays tonight? I mean, he missed their last ball game for a personal thing, and then it became an injury, and then he said something about how, like, he was trying to get himself ready for the performance. It was very Kyrie. I expect him to play, but it's also Kyrie. Should I cut THT after today? Yes. Which is the superior fantasy basketball format, and why is it Roto? I feel so bad about people having a great team all year and lose a couple of players to fluke and short-term injuries these 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, people can argue all they want that it's great to be the 6th seed and, go up against the 1 in the semis, and the 1 seed loses half of their team to weird injuries. And that's fine. If that's your thing and, you want to be on either end of that, that's okay. I don't know. I personally have money on these leagues, and not like a life-changing amount, but substantial enough to make a difference if I win or lose. And so I don't want that to be contingent on as much luck. There's always going to be a little bit luck involved, but when you get to these head-to-head playoff weeks, it really feels like a coin flip. Does your team get hurt? You're done. If they don't, you win. Hooray! That's dumb. All the work you did all year, you're just like, I hope my team doesn't turn their ankle. I'd rather my guys play 22 minutes and not get hurt than play a full game and put up big numbers and then miss the next one. And it's just so stupid. But I get it. Folks want that rush. Anyway, continue to throw questions in, folks. We're zipping through these today. Clarkson's on IL. Dunn is his replacement. And Mark Williams. Would you drop Williams and Dunn for livers and 1 game of Isaiah Jackson without Turner? I have 3 ads. Woof. Oh, my goodness. Mark Williams is probably a drop because I'm not sure that you get any games out of him this week. Maybe 1. I'd be a little surprised if he played tomorrow. You could wait until the report comes out, though, tomorrow. And then if he gets ruled out, then you make a move and you pick up somebody with 4 games the rest of the week starting tomorrow. But with only 3 weekly moves, using one on a Monday, you put yourself in such a tight spot. Would you prefer Isaiah Jackson for tonight or Okogie for 3 games? 3 games of Okogie. 3 is almost always better than 1. So hard to do in 1 game what another guy can do in 3. Yeah, you might get more blocks out of Jackson 1 than Okogie gets you in 3, but he'll basically win every other category. Hey, Dan, just curious, does your don't draft rookies rule also apply to Victor Wembanyama? I would like to hear your thoughts on drafting him. Well, here's the thing, JP. He's probably going to get drafted in the 2nd round next year. So, yes, it does apply to Victor. Unless you're in, Dynasty is a very different monster. He's obviously going to go at the top of every one of those boards. But redraft, he, like almost everyone else, is probably going to have an NBA learning curve. He's an absolute behemoth. His fantasy numbers are going to be through the roof. But he's also very young. He's tall. He's a string bean. And there are some guys in this NBA that are ridiculously strong. And his body's just going to wear it. So if I had to predict, you guys can clip this video, March 13th, 10:02 a.m. Pacific time. Wembanyama's going to get off to a really hot start next year. First, 2 to 3 weeks, rolling, baby. Then the league's going to start to hit him. Not hate, hit. Put bodies into him. Bash him around. And the rookie stuff is going to take its toll. I don't think he's going to be bad for any stretch because whatever team he lands on, they're going to give him everything. But there's going to be a dip, and then it's going to come back up. And this is the rookie curve. You saw it with Paolo. He got off to a really hot start this year, and then just life kind of ground him down a little bit. Some of these guys didn't even get off to fast starts and then are finally coming. Keegan Murray took until January. Jabari Smith Jr. is taking until March. It takes time. Jalen Williams and Walker Kessler are sort of the exceptions. Kessler's big, strong dude. So is Jalen Williams. You need those big, strong, stocky guys. They make the transition a little bit better because when they're getting blasted around, there you go. Even Kessler dropped after today. I have Lowry and Walker on most of my teams. Yeah, that's a good point. Walker Kessler, I guess, is sort of right on the borderline. In starters minutes, he has been above that top 50 threshold that I typically talk about. So you can hold on Kessler too. We'll put him in the hold cart with Lowry. Go ahead and put them both on the good side. 12-team next day moves. I got Ijax yesterday since he plays today, thinking of adding DeLon for tomorrow and then add DiVincenzo for rest of week. The Wizards' schedule is pretty whack. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine. That's a lot of roster moves to use up early in the week, though. Hold on a little bit. Which of DiVincenzo or DeLon Wright would you rather have for rest of week? I can also drop Oubre or Mitchell Robinson to add one of those two. I would rather have DiVincenzo for the rest of the week. That's too many. Don't use that many moves in rapid succession. Just pick one of those guys and roll with them. Is it worth dropping one or both of Trey Jones, Cam Johnson for either both of Killian Hayes and Isaiah Jackson? Cam Johnson, I'm holding. Trey Jones, because of the Spurs tank situation, is a tougher one. I'm not using a move. I don't think I'm using a move on either of those guys because they're 3 and 4 games respectively. Trey Jones is playing 4. I'm sure he'll sit 1, maybe 1.5 of those. But Isaiah Jackson, you'll get a big ball game here, but then they're off for 2 days. That's a 3-game week. Killian Hayes at least is a 4-game week. You know me, I'm not using moves unless I'm gaining 2 games early in a week, and neither one of those gets you to that. Don't drop today, Ivan. How about his Franz angle? Franz's ankle. Wait until tomorrow. Because there's plenty of dudes that have 4 games starting tomorrow if you needed to move off of him. And if you drop him today and then he ends up playing 3 of the 4 games this week, then you're going to feel like a total goof. So don't do that move today. Wait until we get a better idea on that report. I know there's this like built-in desire in all of us to make the quick roster move right now, but you don't have to do it. By the way, a lot of you are watching. A lot of you are posting questions, but not as many of you are clicking like and subscribe. So please go do that. Trying to keep this up through the rest of this season. We'll see our plan on YouTube going forward. But we really revamped this page. So please do like and subscribe. It makes a very large difference to us. If the Spurs shenanigans go on, Trey Jones or Devontae Graham, you demand, Dan. Thank you, Drew. I don't know that there's going to be a game where they play everyone at the same time. So you're probably getting at least 3 games out of Devontae this week, maybe all 4. And with Trey Jones, I feel like you're getting 2, maybe 3, possibly 3. So believe it or not, I think I'm going Devontae Graham between those 2 players. Although, again, you can wait until tomorrow. Unless you're a day in advance type of thing, which for head-to-head is absolutely horrible. Head-to-head's got to be day of. Hey, first time here. Drop Cat and any San Antonio Spur player we must hold. Yeah, Spurs have a good schedule this week. So if we're talking head-to-head, yeah, I don't expect to see Cat back for at least another 2 to 3 weeks, if at all, this regular season. And for the Spurs, you're holding, if you have them, you're holding most of them because they have a good schedule, and then you're just hoping that whatever Spur you have plays at least 3 games and maybe more. I only have 2 centers on my team with 2 center slots. One of them is Mark Williams. I feel like we're doing a word problem here. Might drop him to pick up another guard. Maybe Kyle Lowry. Not that many great centers available. What do you think? Yeah, I would probably drop Mark Williams if we find out he's not playing tomorrow. I don't trust Kyle Lowry, though. I don't even know if he's going to play today, and he definitely won't play in both halves that are back-to-back over the weekend. So, yes, I'm fine with dropping Mark Williams, but no, Lowry's not the direction I'm going. Would you keep Bogdan in a 14-teamer? He's been top 100, has 3 games this week, but he's game-time call with a huge gap till his second game. Well, that's the thing. We'll have some information by later tonight. It's a home game, so the Hawks are at the front end of, if you have a weekly lock or something like that, they're at the front end of tonight's schedule. So we should have more information about them before basically all the games begin. If Bogdan is not playing tonight, he has not been good enough to keep going in a 2-gamer. He hasn't. So the answer is it depends entirely on whether he plays in this one. After today, I think I would probably drop him. Or if he gets ruled out before today, you can drop him. So the answer is both sides. Oh, there you go. Get your brother. Does your brother also have a YouTube screen name that is fart related? You're welcome, my man. If Kuminga's available today, is he a valuable ad? Yeah, I like Jonathan Kuminga. 4-game week. If he's playing, they got a back-to-back, so other dudes might rest later on in the week. If he plays, then yeah, he would be an interesting, basically all week stream. You can hang on until, and then you could make a move on Sunday if you wanted to. They don't play Sunday. Would you keep Kessler through the week? Yeah, sorry, Mick. I should have said that earlier on. He's been good enough. He and Lauri Markkanen are both holds. Worth waiting for tomorrow to see if Mark Williams gets ruled out and possibly IL eligible. Yes, I would say yes, because there are plenty of teams that still go 4 times starting tomorrow this week. So that buys you a little bit of time. Stuck between Livers and Duran points league. I'd go Livers because I think he plays all 4 of their games this week, and I think Duran only goes 3. Steven in the 626. Is that Ontario? California? Yeah, I think you're out east of us here. Right? 626? Am I getting that all right? Someone dropped Brunson. Oh, my. Well, because they have a 2-game week. No, you can't do it, man. It's too dangerous. You could end up using a roster move and getting a 0. That would break you. If Brunson doesn't play and you end up even getting 1 game out of that and using a roster move, that ends your season. If he plays, great. But if he doesn't, you're cooked. You can wait until tomorrow and at least get the 1 game out of Olynyk first. But, woof. Just got news that Poku's playing in the G League. You think he'll be back in the NBA next week? Nah. Even if he is, he ain't gonna play that much. So you better be like 22 team or deeper. So no, I wouldn't worry about Poku. Currently on the championship semis. So which is it? The semis. I have a huge question mark. Jared Allen, Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Mo Wagner, or Franz Wagner. Sorry. Do I replace any of them with Jayshawn Tate, Isaiah Livers, Josh Richardson, or Dennis Smith Jr.? Well, not Dennis Smith Jr. because he has a 2-game week. So yuck. Livers has a 4-gamer. Tate's a 4-gamer. Richardson is 3 among those players. You are not replacing any of those guys. Dang. You know, the Pacers is the tough one because Halliburton we know is ruled out. So he's down to a 2-game week at best. But he's also good enough to play in a 2-game week. Buddy Hield is like right on the cusp of a 2-game week. But if he misses that second one... So here's what you got to do, because there's going to be a pull to use roster moves early in the week. The answer is no. Unfortunately, you're sitting on those guys because they're all too place, especially if they end up playing for part of the week. And I saw the internet just glitched out again here, so I apologize if it's buffers a little bit on you guys. I don't know why the internet is slow today. It might be my computer. It really could be the computer. Maybe it needs a reboot. But anyway, I think we're back now, so sorry about that. The answer is no. You're not doing anything today. You might do something tomorrow if we get bad news on Wagner, or if it sounds like Hield is ruled out super early or something like that. But I think a Buddy's a game time call, so I'd expect him. If that's the case, like he gets close to playing today, then I think you'd get 2 out of him. Jared Allen is tough. If he gets ruled out on Wednesday, that's when you probably make the move on Jared Allen. Is Charles Bassey a good pickup in a 12-teamer? Yeah, actually, I think so. So, no, he doesn't have a fart screen name. St. Gabriel Valley. Yeah, there you go. 626. The SGV, baby. Rolled out that way my fair share of times. Plenty of minor league baseball games I've called out in the 626. Drop Jaden Ivey for Isaiah Jackson for today and drop him for a Bull for Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, full roster on Tuesday and Sunday. What do you think about this strategy? Whoa, that's a lot going on there. Ooh, man. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of roster moves to use on one slot is my take on that one. I don't think I would use 2 roster moves like that. I think I would try to add someone today if you're going to drop Ivy that is going to be useful for at least 4 days. I love Isaiah Jackson. If you pick him up, I think you have to plan on holding him through most of the week. Should I drop KCP for Nemhart with Hallie out, likely for a time? No. Pope's got a 4-game week. If you're going to have a drop for Nemhart, make it someone who only has 2 or 3 games this week. I'm first place next week's in my playoffs. Any suggestion what to do this week? Yeah, save your roster moves until Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then load up on guys who start next week with a strong schedule. And don't worry, we'll talk about that later on this week when we get into the sort of the long streaming through into next week's show. But if you're looking super far ahead, the Kings have a back-to-back Monday, Tuesday of next week. The Knicks go 3 times the first 4 games next week, which actually is better. Sacramento has a couple days off after their back-to-back. I think the Knicks might actually be the best schedule in the NBA early next week, March the 20th. And he takes on Nance for the 3 easy New Orleans Pelican games this week, thinking he'd go berserk even in limited minutes. I wouldn't risk it. That's too risky. Too risky. Games are all spread out. I know they got Houston on the road double whammy there. 2 kind of gimme wins. Actually, they got Houston twice and then the Spurs. Pels are about to go on a little run here. Then their schedule gets tough again. Sort of. No, they got Charlotte after that. Wow, New Orleans has a crazy easy run coming up. 4 tank games right in a row after the Lakers. Then they go Clippers, Blazers, Warriors, Nuggets, Clippers, Kings, Grizzlies, Knicks, Wolves to finish out the year. So it does get a little ugly after that. No, I wouldn't risk it. 3-game week. You're just taking too many chances there on a guy who may or may not play. And we made it. That was a crap ton of questions, everybody. Hey, before you close your window, you better hit that like and subscribe button. I want to see us up and over 3170 before this show is done. You are all very welcome to those that put thank yous in there that I didn't put up on the screen. I am at Dan Vespers on Twitter. I hope that we'll see you over there. And thanks as always for joining us on these live shows. It's really cool that we continue to grow. And it's like, you remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was like 35 people at every show. And now we're into the 70s. And there was a couple shows where we broke 100 when big news was breaking. I do want to do a newsbreaker show. There just hasn't been like a big news break show to do yet. Anyway, if any of you are watching this and you don't yet follow me on Twitter, I would basically insist that you do. And also, please do check out our baseball draft guide, which is super rad. I don't know if many of you made it even to the end of the show. Steven in the 626 gets a question as we close the window. Which 3 would you drop to stream a player this week? Playoffs starting. Thanks. Mark Williams. Yeah, drop. Although you can wait until tomorrow. John Collins after his game today, if that's who that is, not Zach. He would be a drop if it's John Collins after the Atlanta early game this week. And Olynyk after his game this week. So let him play there first. And then, Josh Hart, you got another one there after the game tomorrow. So you have a lot of choices. I wouldn't do anything today, though. This is all decisions you can make Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, we're officially out. I'll see you guys on Twitter at Dan Vespers. Later.